اللي بنلاقي إشي يعيننا في هالوضع هذا اللي إحنا فيه. بتمنى دائما تكون مستمرة هالكابونة، وبنشكرهم اللي طلعوا هذه هالكابونة.
أنا بشكر جمعية تطوير بيت لاهيا ومؤسسة كندا.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last one of Kinder's Ramadan speaker series, Reviving Hope in a Time where the Palestinian children and the children of Gaza need it absolutely more than any time. And we never want to forget them, but especially this year, since we can't have our events, our fundraisers, it is so important that we have these conversations, that we don't forget them, and that we do everything we can to help them. I'm so excited about our conversation today. We have with us Dr. Max Gilbert, but before we get to that, I'm really, really excited to welcome Dr. Leylan Marayati. And you guys probably all know her. She's the amazing driving force behind Kinder USA. And she has been super busy. She's a healthcare professional and has been out there doing her thing during this time, but we're really lucky to be able to have her just for a little bit with us today. So Layla, I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you, Maha. I'm very happy to be here. Glad to be with you. I've really enjoyed all of the programs so far. It's been great with Ilan Pape and Juan Cole, and thank you for all of that. And I'm really excited to be here with Dr. Gilbert, whom we have worked with for many years now. I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to my brothers and sisters there who are fasting around the world. But I pray that all of us can benefit from the blessings of this month. It's really a very special time for Muslims. This is a very unprecedented time. We are not able to have this kind of fellowship and community activities that we had before, and our Ramadan fundraiser was a big part of that. So we miss that, but we are all in solidarity, and I appreciate everybody doing their part to help us who are working on the front lines to keep everyone safe and healthy. But as we approach the end of Ramadan, I want to share with you the efforts of our hardworking staff and partners in Gaza on behalf of those in need. And those in need, their number keeps increasing, unfortunately, but they are the ones who benefit from the generosity of people like you who are watching today, and so many of our supporters who have been with us since we started in 2002. So we couldn't do it without your support. It's very easy to go to the website to push the donate button at any time, and we are grateful for every ounce of support that we get from the community. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about our programs, if that's okay, Maha, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Gilbert. Dr. Max.
Absolutely.
Every year we provide opportunities for women heads of household, needy farmers, young people, local vendors to really help promote the local economy and provide a sense of dignity to the people of Gaza. Now more than 80% of the population relies on assistance. 70% are food insecure, and of those 400,000 are children. This year, we want to reach at least 2,500 families in 15 of the most marginalized areas of Gaza. But if we exceed our goals, we can help even more. Last year, we helped 3,200 families and over 25,000 women, children, and men. So we'd hope to get to that number again. As you can see in these videos, we source fresh produce for food baskets from 100 small farmers who are both men and women who have received seedlings to cultivate their lands. We empowered 34 female heads of household through an income-generating program where they are trained in breeding chickens for roasting and egg laying. We purchase the chickens and fresh eggs directly from these women for the food distribution at a higher market price. So this enables women to run successful businesses while providing for their own families. It's an extremely important project that we've been involved in now for a couple of years. We also partner with 40 women working from home as part of these women's cooperatives to prepare dates, jam, mamul, and that is delivered to families who cannot bake and provide food for themselves. And we purchase freshly prepared cheese and za'atar doka, which is a Palestinian spice, from Women One Cooperative. So only $130 will feed an entire family. They will receive distributions twice during the month. That is all it takes. With live chickens, fresh dairy and herbs, vegetables, jam, mamul, all of the things they need to really be able to enjoy this Ramadan like everyone else throughout the world. And we employ people in Gaza in order to make this possible. So we do as much as we can. We are only bounded by the limitations of what we're able to fundraise. So that's why we really look to you for your support and commitment. Many of you I know have been with us for a long time, and we are so grateful for that. And I hope, God willing, that we can continue this path together, because unfortunately the need is going to continue, but we have to be there to make a difference. So I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to see all of you in this way and to be here and to let you know that we are committed now more than ever to continuing this work for the people of Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, and beyond.
Thank you so much, Leila. And I just want to add one little thing to what you said. During our conversation last week with Juan Cole, with Professor Cole, he talked about how the stunting of growth for children in Gaza is actually on the rise, which is so disheartening to know that these children will never grow to their full potential because they're not getting enough protein and they're not getting enough food in general. And so I think it matters so much. I mean, as you were saying, every ounce counts, every dollar counts, but it makes a really big difference in these people's lives. And like you said, $130 will actually feed a family of 8 to 10 people for a whole month. That just puts it in perspective. Yeah. Anyway, while we still have you, Leila, I want to actually bring on our guest today that we're all excited to have, because I know you actually want to say hello to him as well. So allow me to introduce Dr. Max Gilbert. He has been a friend of Kinder's for a long time. He has spoken at so many of our events. His knowledge and his experience is so insightful. And just for people who don't know that much about him, he is a Norwegian physician, humanitarian, and activist. He is a specialist in anesthesiology and the head of the emergency medicine department at the University Hospital of North Norway, and professor of emergency medicine at the University of Tromsø. I hope I said that right. And he has been in Gaza for all of the 5 attacks in recent history, as well as both intifadas, working to heal people, working to help children that have been injured. And he is also visiting professor at Al-Azhar University in Gaza, helping to train healthcare professionals over there. So he's just an amazing person to have with us today, and to hear from him about what's going on over there, and just about, you know, he has his finger on the pulse of what is really going on the ground. Dr. Gilbert, we're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you for being
Salam
here.
alaikum. Salam alaikum. And Salam alaikum and Ramadan Kareem to all of you. Thank you for inviting me.
Alaikum salam.
So, Dr. Gilbert, when you and I were talking before our conversation, you said that you always start your talks with questions for the people watching or for the people listening. So I actually want to hear what those questions are.
Well, I think that reality is important, and I think it's important to know what the audience know about occupied Palestine and what they know in particular about Gaza. And to many people, Gaza is sort of a blind spot. It's a very bad place. It's a place of misery and poverty and bombing and begging and occupation and siege. And yes, it is, but it's also a fantastic place. It's a beautiful part of Palestine. It has 2 million inhabitants. It's an extremely well-educated population. The large majority are kids or below 18 years. It's extremely industrious. And as Dr. Leila explained, these women projects where they are raising chicken and taking care of businesses, it's remarkable to be there. It's fantastic to see how the resilience and how the capacity that humans have to endure hardship for years and years and years, 70 years of occupation and 13 years of siege. I always come home richer than when I left Norway, when I've been to Gaza, because it teaches me so much about what it means to be a human. So one of my questions will be, are there universities in Gaza?
Well, I know the answer to that question. I don't know if a lot of people do.
We don't have an active chat to be able to take those questions, and I'm going to sign off in a minute so the two of you can continue your conversation. I just wanted to echo what you were saying. Several years ago, I've only been able to go a couple of times to visit. As you know, I've had some challenges in that regard. My relatives from my father's family, the Al-Faras, are there in Gaza. But one year I went and they had the MERS outbreak, which is similar to what we're experiencing today with COVID. And I went in through Rafah and entered in Gaza. And I was so amazed by the professionalism, the thoroughness of the Ministry of Health staff as they questioned me, screened me, and then were able to stay in touch with me while I was in Gaza to make sure that I was well and that I didn't bring any threat to the community there. But they had tracked it, and I've seen how they've been tracking the COVID incidents in Gaza now. We see those reports. And like you said, it is amazing what they are able to accomplish, and people really don't necessarily give them credit for the high level of functioning professionalism, public health commitment, education, all of those things. So hopefully you'll talk more about that. And I will sign off and enjoy watching the rest of the program with both of you.
Thank you, Leila. Stay with us, enjoy our conversation, and then hopefully you'll come back at the end and, you know, just say a last goodbye to everybody who's watching us. So please stay with us. Okay. All right. So Dr. Gilbert, I think that the point that it seems that you are really, you know, trying to make, which has been different from the other conversations that we've had, is it's very easy to, like you said when we spoke, to kind of get into the constant victim mentality and to always be thinking about, you know, how sad and you know, unfortunate the situation is. But I think what you are always stressing is that, yes, there is a lot of suffering, and you talk about that in a very factual way, but you also talk about the amazing strength and resilience and sumud, as you always like to say, that's there. So I'd like to hear more from you about what you see on the ground when you're there, the facts, but also the powerful mastering that you're able to see.
Yeah, where should we start? Let's start by underlining that all the misery in Gaza is actually man-made. It didn't need to be that way. It's actually deliberate. It's planned. It's executed by a government, by a state, supported by the US, and unfortunately also in some instances by Norway and the EU. So I think we need all the time when we discuss Gaza and the West Bank and the diaspora, we need to remind ourselves that this could all have been avoided had it not been for the occupation and the politics of occupation of Palestine. So the root cause of all the misery that we see as medical problems, the stunting, the anemia, the poverty, the wounded during the bombing, could all have been avoided by one simple measure, namely to find a political solution which is fair, just, and sustainable for both people, for the Palestinian people and for the Israeli people. So I'd just like to start by saying that what really strikes me the most when I am in Gaza is this remarkable patience, the combination of patience and strength. I would go completely nuts if I had to live and raise my kids in a besieged prison. It's, you know, it's been called, as you know, by many, the largest open air prison in the world. You could call it a ghetto. I wouldn't be able to tolerate it because I'm so spoiled by my freedom and by my access to everything. I just had a shower. It's 5 o'clock in the morning in Norway now. And the water in my shower, I can drink from it. I could just put out my tongue and drink the shower water. In Gaza, 96% of the water is undrinkable. Wow. Because someone wants it to be that way. So when we do all our solidarity work or charity work, we should not forget that the most important change maker is the political tools, the pressure we can put on our politicians to say, listen, we don't accept that another people is exposed to this unjust and actually unlawful collective punishment, which is affecting all parts of life: education, feeding, housing, future, traveling, any aspect of life you can think of is hindered and affected and obstructed by the occupation and by the siege of Gaza. So when the COVID-19 situation comes, hardship goes to horrible hardship compared to what we have. So I guess we will touch on that too. But my basic message is that when we are doing our charity work or solidarity work, as I like to call it, we should walk on 2 feet. We should understand the preconditions and why they are as they are and work on that side. And then we should respect the Palestinians and not look at them as sort of beggars or pitiful people, but be shoulder to shoulder with them. And as the Kinder projects do so beautifully, play on their capacity to master the situation themselves. Their sumud, their willingness to keep up the struggle for a free Palestine, and then ask them, how can we support you? Instead of presuming what we should do or just send money. So I think the most important thing the viewers today can do is actually to put pressure on your congresswoman or congressman, because the biggest game changer in this political situation is the United States.
Of course.
That's why I prioritize to talk and to travel to the United States, because you, the Palestinians in the US, and all the people in the US, you are the ones who can really change the game here.
Before we talk about the COVID-19 situation, because I'm sure we will, one thing that you touched upon is and you told me, which I found very interesting, is you said, I don't do humanitarian medicine, I do solidarity medicine. Because for you, it seems that helping people stand on their own 2 feet is far more important than just giving them humanitarian assistance. So I'd like to talk about that and how that's made a difference when you're there, the experiences that you have when you're there, how you feel like that really, just that shift in thinking about it makes a really big difference.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Maha. It's an important one, because I think we have to realize that much of the misery in the world today is based on political preconditions and choices, as I said. And the relief industry is part of maintaining the status quo, because by looking at people as beggars, we can feel good about dropping a nickel or dropping a sort of a kilo of rice in their food basket. But we have to look for the root causes, as I said, and I am not the one who is saving lives in Gaza when there is bombing. It is the Palestinian health workers, the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics, the volunteering medical students. They are the heroes. I'm not a hero, but everyone coming from the north to the south are portrayed as some kind of saviors and heroes. And that misses the point, because it is the people's own struggle that can change the situation. So when I say solidarity medicine, I say that I take an active side. My oath as a doctor is to support the patient. It is to choose side with the patient. I don't, if I have a female, a woman patient coming to me, she's being abused physically, I can't say, you know, really, I'm neutral. I don't take side with you. It could be your fault, it could be his fault. You never do that. As a doctor, as a health worker, you side up with your patient. That is a moral and a political choice. In Palestine, I side up with the Palestinian people because I consider occupation, siege, bombing as unjust. And I think the Palestinians are right in their fight to have their own nation. So, of course, at an individual level, I would never do that. I would treat any Israeli soldier the same way as I treat a Palestinian child. I'm completely neutral. My choice lies before that. My choice is that I travel to Gaza and not to Israel because I support Palestinian people. That is a political choice. And large chunks of the humanitarian work or the relief industry always proclaims that it's neutral. And like Desmond Tutu, the champion of the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, said, if you take a neutral position in a situation with oppression, you actually choose the side of the oppressor. There is no neutral position. So when I say solidarity medicine, I mean 4 things. I mean, number 1, go there and be on the side of the struggling people, shoulder to shoulder, not scalpel to scalpel, but shoulder to shoulder, showing them that they are not alone. Number 2, gather evidence, gather facts, do science, write about what's happening. Because knowledge is a very powerful tool in the struggle for a better world. I call that evidence-based solidarity. The third element is, of course, to do the medical work, and I do that. I use my hands, my skills, my whatever I can provide, but knowing that I am the guest and they are my masters. I work under their command. And the fourth element in solidarity medicine is, of course, to take the experiences from the struggling people back home to our societies and see where we can use their experience, because they are masters of improvisation.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
choosing side, being there, and that's what the Palestinians are saying. You know, we know, Dr. Matt, that you are not the one doing all the life saving. We do that, and you always say that. But when you come, we feel that we are not alone, and that is a strength in our struggle. And I think the Kinder Project is the same. When they donate to the local women so that they can raise chicken and they can make the food baskets, that is a sign of respect and solidarity with the struggle.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you know, we talked about the element of empowering and mobilizing rather than just giving a handout, and how much of a difference it makes for people to feel like they have that little bit of power and that little bit of independence in their own hands. I think that psychologically makes a big difference. You touched on something, the heroes. You say the heroes are the health workers. And so I know that you're involved in several programs, amazing things. And one of the ones that we talked extensively about, which I'd like to tell everybody listening about, is the training by the med students. I know that that's a kind of a passion project for you, and a big one, and the effect that it's having on the layperson, on you know, the average person, to be able to help out when things get really rough and in a difficult situation where people are injured and so on. So can we talk about that program, please?
Sure. You know, one striking thing when you work in the emergency room during attacks and bombing in Gaza, the wounded are just pouring in. You see that many will come in without an open airway, or without a bleeding that has been controlled simply by direct pressure. So training the lay people, as you know, we've done in Norway and the US, to know how to call the emergency service, to know how to open the airway by head, tail, chin lift, to do the chest compressions, to stop a bleeding, to keep a patient warm. All that we take for granted, but that is not granted in Palestine. So what we have done through the last 5 years is to use medical students to do 2 things. Number 1, we have a lay people training project where we train medical student instructors, and they go out in the communities and have like 3 hours first aid training programs. And they train anything from school kids to women to workers. Here you see a picture from an UNRWA school in Gaza, where school kids, I think these are 6th grade, are training life-saving first aid on each other. We don't use a lot of mannequins. We use the other students as simulators, and then the medical students will be the teachers. So they are taking responsibility for the skills in the community, in lay people. And imagine that somebody's bombing your house and your kids are unconscious or bleeding, and you don't know what you should do. And of course, that helplessness will add to the paralysis of just being in that situation. So just knowing what to do is part of building resilience. So this has been a very successful program. The students their first goal is to train 3,000 lay people. They're reaching that goal now. And in parallel, they do research and they publish their results in like the Lancet. And the second part of the program is that we use graduate medical students to be instructors in the university to train medical students in first grade. You see here, that's myself on the one slide. I teach, and then we have This is a class of 190 first-year medical students in Al-Azhar. This is in February this year. And it's a 1-week obligatory training course. We as academics do the lectures, and then the students in second and third year are the instructors. Point here is that it's extremely practical. Normally, an academic lecture is 45 minutes sitting in the auditorium listening to some professor showing 2 million PowerPoints and you don't remember anything. This training is different. Every lecture is 15 minutes in the auditorium, and then 30 to 40 minutes in groups where they train on the hands-on skills. Very, very in detail. And the 2 instructors from the older classes are following one group for a whole week. Extremely successful, and it has a wider impact because medicine is very much about practical work. It's not only reading books.
Radical.
So when these kids get the tools of how can you act in an emergency, they feel empowered, and we recruit them to go out in the lay people training program, of course. And the lay people training program, some of the students are saying, you know, now I really feel that I can be an engineer in society because I go out and I see what are the problems of the people I'm going to serve. And it helps me understand what it means to be a doctor. It means to be much more than just giving out some penicillin or taking a blood pressure. It means to try to change the preconditions for health, for public health, which are the basic living conditions. And without seeing firsthand with your eyes the living conditions of the people in Gaza, you really don't know how to be a doctor. So it has multiple layers of effects on the medical students. And I consider medicine an extremely political endeavor, because medicine and politics are twins in a way, because living conditions are the fundamental basis for public health. It's water, it's food security, it's human security, it's housing, it's work, it's education, and then it's healthcare. And in Gaza, you're lacking all the primary preconditions for public health, and the doctors need to understand that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I mean, I think that program, it sounds so amazing, and it just keeps going back to what you've been talking about, of what a difference it makes to help people have tools in their own hands and to be able to be, have a kind of mastery where they're not just, like you said, just, being at the mercy of being given handouts and so on. And so I think that makes a really big difference. Another thing that you touched on when you were talking about the solidarity medicine, which I know is very important and very important to you, is the power of medicine documentation, which goes back to the same idea of how political it is and how much they are twins in a way, is because when doctors are there on the ground and they have firsthand experiences, and then they come back all over the world and write about these experiences, there's no better way to open people's eyes. So I want to talk about that in your mind, and then we can talk a little bit about your books as well.
Yeah, sure. As I said, one of the 4 corners of solidarity medicine is documentation and research. And I think research is not only a tool for answering curious questions, it is also a tool to change the world. It is a tool for evidence-based pursuing of justice for people, be it, oppression of women, workers' rights, all aspects of life where injustice is threatening the good health of people. We have to document it. So collecting data, knowing how to do research and publish the data is extremely important. And one of the great elements in this work is, of course, Lancet Palestine Health Alliance, which is an annual convention where we are actually presenting scientific evidence from all over the world, where the researchers doing research in occupied Palestine and in the diaspora. So we publish, we have a research group in Gaza researching together with them, not doing research on them, but doing it together. And the medical students are extremely eager to build capacity to do their own research. So we publish results from the situation in in Gaza, and this is the latest thesis, which is the effects of war-related extremity amputations, which is a 5-year study on traumatic amputations in Gaza from the various attacks. And this has greatly, unfortunately, accelerated with the Great March of Return. And this is the last issue of the Lancet Palestine Health Alliance. And this is just full of research results from the situation in Gaza and the West Bank. This is extremely powerful and dangerous to the occupiers, because it is showing in the hard end what does the siege, what does the lack of food, what does the impoverishment mean to public health, and that can talk to anyone. The language of the powers, it's terrorism, it's we have to protect blah blah, it's anti-Semitism, it's thrown at you at any moment. So we need to pursue the facts. And like Laila said, 70% of the families in Gaza are food insecure, and unemployment in Gaza was last December, just before we turned into 2020, it was 43%, which is a staggering number. And following the COVID-19 situation, a large chunk of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank have lost their work. So in Gaza now, it was 208,000 unemployed in December last year. Now it has added another 130. So it's almost 340,000 unemployed in Gaza out of the 2 million people, which of course is another huge threat to public health, because people cannot afford buying food. And as you said, the stunting, the anemia, it's all affecting the children. The average age, the mean age in Gaza is 17.6 years.
It's a very young population.
Yeah.
60%
of the 2 million people are 18 and below.
Wow.
And where else in the world is an organized government allowed to keep 1.2 million children under siege and deprive them of food, freedom to move, education, and security, safety? Where else in the world is that allowed? Turn it around. Ask the question, what would the world have said if somebody dared to incarcerate 1.2 million Israeli children and deprive them of food and freedom? So there is an incredible double standard here, and we need to show that, and we need to do the research and get the numbers, because the numbers are often a very powerful tool. Yeah.
And I know that you've often actually faced resistance to the publishing of some of the pieces and some of the articles that really show the hard facts, correct?
Yeah. It's a constant struggle. It can be hard to get it published. The Lancet Palestine Health Alliance is a very important and extremely brave undertaking. It's 10 years old now, and it's a very important platform for producing Palestinian proper research and publish the data. As you know, the Lancet is one of the 4 big medical journals in the world. Yes. But even there is a constant struggle where the occupiers are trying to sanitize the facts and get rid of anything which pertains to the realities on the ground and which criticize the politics of occupation and the results of the occupation and the bombing. So this is part of the greater political struggle, to have a freedom to express and to publish the facts. And there is a massive abuse of power. I mean, you see it in the United States, the way your president or the president is using Twitter to constantly challenge the truth in a way that we've never seen before. So I think all of us, we have a responsibility to keep up to date with the facts on the ground and to read not only the newspaper, but to search sources of real knowledge, and that is the science. And if you go on Google Scholar, I would advise all of you listeners today to look into Google Scholar and just search Gaza plus health, or Gaza plus children, or Gaza plus anemia, or Gaza plus Max Gilbert, and you can see the research that we have produced. And that is an important fact source.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, science is funny that way. It usually does address facts, but, you know, like you said, I mean, it's interesting how people can set that aside when they want to. Let's talk a little bit about your books before we go back to talking about COVID and so on. I want to know your inspirations for writing for Night in Gaza and subsequently Eyes in Gaza, and what message was important for you to get across with your writing?
Well, again, I feel a responsibility to tell. It's the second point on my medical solidarity work. This is the last book, The Night in Gaza, that I published in 2014 after the monstrous attack on Gaza in 2014. And I want to be a microphone. I want to be a channel. I don't want to be a voice for the voiceless, because they are not voiceless. They are very vocal, but they are made voiceless by the obstruction of their access to the microphones and the cameras. So being a white, blue-eyed, blonde Norwegian doctor, I have another audience that I can address. I'm not an Arab terrorist, and all these prejudices and sort of lack of objectivity that is so prevalent today can be bypassed when I talk, because I am a white doctor. So this is the Night in Gaza book, and it is saturated with my own pictures from the operating room, and most of all, it is saturated with stories of real people, like this story of Jumana Samuni that I was participating in the treatment of during the attack in 2009, Operation Cast Lead. And I have followed her for 11 years. And when I go back to Gaza, I always visit her. And I tell the story about Jumana, how she's growing up and how her family is taking care of her. We had to amputate almost all of her left hand. She's doing fine. But my motivation to write these books is, again, to share with the audience the bravery, the human life of the Palestinians in Gaza, and to give a large place for their voices. So I do interviews with them, but most of all, I try to explain what the horrors of war are in Gaza when they are being bombed, and that pertains not only to Gaza. It pertains to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to Libya, to Yemen, to anywhere in the world where the colonial powers are abusing their massive military superiority to hit people who are struggling for freedom. So it's not only about Gaza. It is about the human condition, and it is about our contemporary world where the powers are talking about surgical warfare and avoiding collateral damage. It's all a big blatant lie, because when you are under the F-16 or the Apache helicopter or the drones, that's when you see who are hit. It's 90% civilians, and it's horrible, and it's sanitized away from the main media, and in particular from the media in the United States. So we need to take people behind the filter and show them reality. That's why I write these books.
And even though, I mean, I remember, I believe it was the year right after that when you spoke at one of the Kinder events and were showing those pictures and telling those stories. And it is so difficult for the average layperson to watch and to hear. But at the same time, as you say, it is so important for people to know the actual horrors that are there. And I often wonder, I mean, this is just a personal question, how you as a doctor can actually see that and compartmentalize and go on and sleep at night. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I've even said that to Layla many times. I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know. So I commend you for all the work that you do and being able to carry on in the way that you do.
Well, don't forget, Maha, that I can take my red passport, my Norwegian passport. I can leave through Ares. I can safely go from Tel Aviv and fly back home to my gorgeous life here in Norway. I'm safe. I have water and food and everything. And I'm the least problem. Imagine those with 5 kids who have lost their home in bombing, and with a mother and a father without work. How can they absorb? How can they digest the horrors of the bombing and the loss of their kids and family members? So I appreciate your question. I think the answer to that is that I feel that my motivation to give lectures and to write books and to the research is to give back to the Palestinian people what they deserve, and to be a decent person. Because once we accept that other people are treated like animals, we become part of that animalistic politics ourselves. So I feel that it's a privilege actually to be able to talk about it. And I sleep well at night, but I feel desperate right now because I can't go back to Gaza. I should have been there now. Because of the COVID-19, all the borders are closed. Like in Norway, I can even not leave Norway as a health worker because our government had restricted our travel. So that's a desperate situation. Fortunately, the COVID-19 situation in Gaza is quite good.
Well, actually, that was going to be my next question. And I mean, in every conversation that I have had during our Ramadan speaker series, we've talked about how if there's any small silver lining to the blockade, it's that the COVID cases are not terrible. And we actually have the last the Palestinian Ministry of Health report that you sent to us from just yesterday, I believe, or the 14th, which is that there's 20 cases, I believe. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
There's 20 cases, 14 have recovered, and 6 are still, yeah, okay. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, these numbers are confirmed. This is the last UN report from the OCHA. It is similar to the Ministry of Health report. And altogether in West Bank and Gaza, there are 554 confirmed cases. Bear in mind that the test activity has not been extremely high because of the lack of test kits. But among those 554 confirmed cases, there are 443 recovered, and in Gaza, only 20 of the 554 cases are. And as you said, out of the 20 confirmed cases in Gaza, 14 have recovered, 4 are dead. They are all, unfortunately, dead in the West Bank. None have died from COVID-19 in Gaza. And that is because the Ministry of Health and the authorities were extremely quick to quarantine anybody coming into Gaza, either through areas in the north or through Rafah in the south. So they built quarantine centers at the border, and they actually quarantined people for 28 days. They currently now have 1,574 people in quarantine in Gaza. 67% of them are men, 6% are children. They have, in addition to the quarantine centers, they have dedicated 2 hospitals in Gaza, the Gaza European and another hospital, to be the COVID-19 hospital in order not to contaminate the other hospitals, which are important, of course, for all the other health needs in Gaza.
Yeah, of course.
So they have, I had a long talk with the Minister of Health the other day, and I've talked to my medical students. They say that the situation is quite calm. I had a 1-hour discussion with one of my brilliant medical students in Gaza yesterday and asked her a little bit about how the feeling was in Gaza. And she said, you know, it's not much of social distancing. As you know, Dr. Mads, Palestinians are not good at social
distancing. Arabs in general, I assure you, but yes.
which to me is a beautiful human quality, because you know, in as much as I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a religious person. I of course participate in the fasting during Ramadan, and during the 2014 attack, it happened during Ramadan, and I was fasting with the Palestinians. my brothers and sisters in the hospital, and to take part in the iftar during ongoing attacks. It is a human experience which surpasses anything I've had, actually. So this turning back to the distancing between people, it's a hard thing to do in Gaza. But they have very good track of all the influx, and they don't have an index patient in Gaza. So it seems like, as they say themselves, for once, we are blessed. For once, we are blessed by being under siege. For once, the siege is serving us.
Exactly. But it seems also from what you're saying, in addition to just it being a kind of an unwitting silver lining, it seems that this response seems incredibly coordinated and incredibly quick, and I want to say even better than a lot of other places we've seen. I mean, that's impressive.
I don't know if you people in the United States have access to daily briefings from your Minister of Health with all the numbers and all the statistics at your fingertips, so that you can actually judge for yourself and you can see for yourself whether the situation is under control or not. Here you see the report from yesterday, from the 16th. But bear in mind, there is, in addition to the numbers, there is a list of 20 points. And one of the important points, in addition to describing the precautions people have to take and all the precautions the Minister of Health have taken, I'd like to read to you the point number 14, saying, quote, "The Minister of Health appeals to the United Nations to lift the illegal and inhuman blockade on Gaza Strip and to support the urgent needs of the health system to face the COVID-19, including respiratory and intensive care equipment, medicines, medical consumables, and infection prevention and control supplies," unquote. So actually, they are addressing the siege. They are addressing the occupation as part of the problem in fighting COVID-19. And a recent study by another brilliant medical student, Usaid Alser, was published just a few days ago. And Usaid took part in some of the training we have done there, and I worked with him in the emergency room during the 2014 attack. He's now actually at Harvard as a postgraduate student. He's a medical doctor now. They did a study, a survey on the access to personal protective equipment in Gaza. Can I quickly touch on that?
Oh, please, absolutely. I was just going to ask you about that, because I know that this is, like you said, a medical student, and this was a survey that you sent me, and I found it incredibly interesting to read about. So please do tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so they did a questionnaire, a survey in Gaza and the West Bank. It's published online now. And they have shown that 72%, almost 3 out of 4 health workers in Gaza and the West Bank have no access to face mask when needed. 90% have no access to isolation gowns. 93% have no access to eye shields, eye protection, and 96% have no N95 face masks. And 92%, 9 out of 10, have no face masks, as we see being used in the US as in Norway. And when you compare Gaza and the West Bank, it's significantly worse in Gaza compared to the West Bank. And I know a lot of the details around this. I'm not going to bother you with the numbers, but there is a lack of testing equipment, there is a lack of hospital beds, and there is a lack of manpower. In addition, they found that only 12% of the interviewed health workers felt confident in dealing with a COVID-19 patient, meaning that they have not had it. Yeah. So even if there is a silver lining, you as you say, it's more like a paradoxical effect of the siege, I think, in Gaza, and I think we're happy it is that way, because if it had exploded in Gaza, many of us feared an enormous disaster. So let's just cross our fingers and hope that they manage to keep it that way, but at the same time keep demanding opening the borders so they can have the medical equipment they need, the protective equipment the health workers need, and through Kinder, support the people so they can have the food, which is critical to combat infections, because your food balance and your metabolism is part of your immune competency, and your immune competency will decide whether or not you get killed or survive a COVID-19 infection. So it's all hanging together here.
Of course, I mean, everything, it's all interconnected. It's not nothing. None of this is in isolation. So absolutely. So you were talking a little bit about your frustration of not being able to go and to help right now. But I mean, you, more than most anyone I know, were there very, very recently. You were just there in Gaza in February, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your most recent trip.
Yeah, in February, we conducted for the first time a week-long academic training course at Al-Azhar University in Gaza City for the 180 plus first-year medical students. And we actually, it's a solidarity project. We copied and adapted the training program that we do at the University of Tromsø. And here you see the steering committee. And if you noticed on the far side, there is a girl in a violet jacket. That's Vilde. She's a medical student in Tromsø. And then there is Azar, and then there is Vegard, the guy in the black jacket. He's also a medical student from Tromsø. And all the others are Palestinian medical students and doctors in Gaza.
And I recognize the man on the far left as well.
Yeah, that's Dr. Mats, who is the organizer of the training. And here we are actually discussing, because it is a very practical training course. As I said, 15 minutes lecture, 40 minutes training, extremely realistic. One of the people in the picture is a plastic surgeon, Dr. Khalil, who is extremely good at doing the makeup when we do the training. So burns and wounds and bleedings.
Yeah, I saw that in the images that you sent me. Maybe Christine, if you have any of those, we can put them up. Where we see it. For a second, I actually thought they were real wounds, but that's so realistic that the makeup that was done.
What you see in this picture, the person on the ground is a third-year medical student who has been made up to be an injured from, it could be an explosive injury. And the two young girls are first-year medical students. And this is the last day of the training course, where we have a field track with 14 different scenarios that they have to treat and apply their knowledge on. And it's two very interesting things about this picture. Number one, this is how you can train people hands-on. You have to do it. They have to be able to learn how to use their hands and to be practical. And number two, you see these girls are working on a male student, which is again part of the cultural divide or obstructions in some senses, because the division between boys and girls is much more pronounced in Gaza than I'm used to in my university hospital. But of course, they have to respect it, but at the same time move forward. And I'm very happy to say that this training course was extremely efficient. It was energetic, it was hard work, because if you want to train 190 people in how to do the mechanics of the airway opening, how to find the femoral artery, you have to spend time on 190 individuals. And to do that, you really have to have a big organization. So the students are split in groups of 10, and that group stays together for the whole week. And they have two instructors from the second year of medical students who have been trained by us to be instructors. So they are, in a very careful and loving way, being led through the mystics of learning how not only to read and listen to the lecture, but to use your hands.
Use their hands, yeah. And I saw from your picture that you took with you the Norwegian medical students as well. What's that experience like for them? I mean, did they know a lot about the situation in Gaza or in general before that? I mean, you and I, you showed me pictures way back from when you used to go to, Lebanon, way before the Intifadas even began. And but for these young students, it must be an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and absolutely. I've been very, very restrictive on taking people with me. I'm not running a travel agency. I'm a solidarity worker, and I don't have time to misery tourism. I think much of the relief industry is sort of a relief, sort of a travel into misery and badging. I've been there. So I don't do that. But these medical students are special. They are organizers. They have been key organizers in our medical faculty in organizing the similar training for medical students here. Mm-hmm. They have been active on many aspects in the solidarity work. And bear in mind, Tromsø is twin city with Gaza City. We've been twin city for 15 years. And we have a very active... Pardon me?
I know you had a little bit of a role to play in that, or probably a big role.
Well, as a member of the city council here, I'm also a politician. We've been working on that for a long time. But Vegard and Vilde, these two students have really been asking for like 5 years to go with me to Gaza. Mm-hmm. And like Hanne, who did the thesis on amputations, she was also a medical student when she first approached me and said, "Can I go with you to Gaza?" And I said, "No, you cannot, because I'm not running a travel or a tourist agency." And then she started to do research, and she did brilliantly, and she's been together with me in the research group in Gaza ever since. So they are handpicked. And of course, we have had medical students from Gaza coming here to Tromsø to see how we do the training here. So the Tromsø and the Gaza medical students are like brothers and sisters. And this is part of the solidarity, because when somebody comes to side up with you, you feel that you are not alone in the struggle. And being alone is the most negative thing in any distress situation, in any human difficulty. To be alone without support, it makes you extremely vulnerable. So on the greater scene, this solidarity between medical students is part of building a stronger solidarity movement for the next 20 years when we are all in the coffin.
Well, hopefully none of us will be in the coffin in 20 years, but I get your point.
Okay.
From your tone and from the conversations that we have had, I noticed that you are a little bit jaded about the relief industry. And I even, was speaking to you a little bit about social media, and you said, I have no time for that. And I know that this may be, a little unpopular with a lot of people, but I very much appreciate it and thought about it a lot afterwards, about how being able to post something or, put up an image or whatever can sometimes take away from doing the actual work, or allow people to feel like they're doing something or being a part of a movement or making a difference, when in reality, that's not the case. Going there, making a difference like what you're doing is what is making a difference. So I want to talk a little bit about your kind of wake-up call to people in terms of if they really want to make a difference.
Well, I really want to thank you, Maha, for that question, because I think working with Kinder USA is precisely the opposite of just hitting a like on your Facebook, because what Laila and Dalel and the other female activists note, that the driving forces in Kinder USA are women, brave women working in the US. I know few braver people than the Palestine activists, and I will say that to all of you listening tonight. You are brave. You are working in a harsh environment. It's not easy to be a pro-Palestinian. It's not easy to be an Arab pro-Palestinian in the United States, and you have my deepest respect for the work that you do and your support for Kinder USA. And Kinder USA, like the Palestinian Children Relief Foundation in the US, also incredibly important solidarity organizations. But the reason I'm not on social media, I'm not on Twitter, is that it consumes a lot of time. And in a way, I consider social media like a dry sponge, which is really absorbing all the energy and the activism that people have embedded in themselves. Like, you see injustice, you want to do something about it. Well, do something about it. Hitting a like on Facebook is not going to change the world at all. At all. On the contrary, it makes you feel that you have done something to change the world, and it in a way, it pacifies the active solidarity movement. We need to get organized. Where would the labor unions have been without membership and organization? Where would the struggle for workers' rights, working hours, fair working wages have been without the labor unions? How would the world have looked if we didn't organize the resistance against injustice and oppression? So Facebook could be seen, and many see it as an organizer, but don't forget that we did struggle. We did go to the streets. We did win struggles years before Facebook even existed, by talking to each other, by joining as humans, by making actions which really could oppose the powers when they abuse their powers. So I think that in many ways, and of course for, you know, the intelligence services, it's a perfect way to map networks, and mapping networks is part of the way that they keep control with the opposition, with the resistance. So I'm not paranoid. I just I'm an old-fashioned activist. I like to talk with people. I see this platform is a beautiful platform when we cannot travel, but I think like Kinder is doing, you need to make alliances which are concrete. You need to show that you really mean what you say in practical action. Actions speak louder than words, and it's not an action to hit a like on the button or to just forward. Of course, it can affect the opinion, but when you see the way that, for example, President Trump is using Twitter, it is like it's a tool of that can be abused so easily, and it is being abused so easily. So I believe in small groups getting organized. Like Margaret Mead, the famous American social anthropologist, said, "Never doubt," she said, "never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, Dr. Gilbert, we could keep talking for a very long time, and you know, your ideas and your insights, and not just, you know, your experience on the ground, but also just the knowledge that has come with it is amazing. But we can't keep talking all night. But before we go, I know that you had sent us some beautiful images, and I wish, Christine, if you could put those up, of the boy and the old woman, because I think that those sum up a lot of what was important to you and the message that you really wanted to get across during our conversation today. So if you could just tell us a little bit about why the images are important to you, and what your kind of final message is about the people that you've experienced with, the people that you've broken fast with, you know, on probably, I imagine you guys probably sitting on the floor or something, but, you know, during an attack, and the people that you work with so intimately. So just to kind of get a final thought from you.
Thank you, Maha. The upper picture, I took it in the emergency room in the disaster reception area in July 2014. It's one of the thousands of injured Palestinian children during the bombing. He came in, he asked me if I had seen his parents. I had not. You can see how meager he is. You can see the wasting of his thighs. He's not so seriously wounded that he will be admitted. We just look over him, patch his wounds, and send him out into the thunderous bombing again. But this kid has now his fourth experience of being bombed, despite the fact that he has done absolutely nothing wrong in his life, except for being born Palestinian in Gaza, occupied Palestine. And I think his glance, his eyes, his desperation and his helplessness is so extremely painful. And I have a hard time talking about that picture, because I think it is a glimpse into what you don't get to see on the media, namely the human suffering. The other side of the coin is the Sumud. And the lower picture is a lady I met just the day after the ceasefire in 2012, the attack in 2012, which fortunately lasted only a bit more than a week. I went out to look at the places where we had received the patients from. This is in Gaza City. And she was actually tidying up the rubbles of her own home, the family home being completely bombed. And I asked her if I could take a picture of her, and she said, "Young man, why do you want to take a picture of an old Palestinian lady in a dirty dress?" And I said, "Because you, to me, my lady, you are the face of the Palestinian Sumud. You are here tidying up your bombed house. You're smiling to me, a foreigner with great responsibility for the misery that you're living in, and still you treat me as a human." And these two people, to me, are the suffering and the strength of the Palestinian people. And I cannot say how much I admire them, and I cannot say how much we need to keep fighting for a just solution for the Palestinian people.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Gilbert, thank you so much, not just for being with us today, but obviously for being with us today and every time you have come to speak for Kinder and everything you've said about Kinder, but also thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything that you say. Thank you for being a very active activist, not a passive activist. And thank you for taking all of the knowledge and experience that you have and taking it there to make a difference in people's lives and to empower them, and the respect that you have for them and the way you speak about the people is just, that to me is the most moving thing. And it's been wonderful having you with us, and I hope you will come back again. I know that you are a friend of Kinder's, and so inshallah, as we say, we will have you back again many times. But more importantly, honestly, inshallah, you will be able to go back to Gaza very soon and do what you do best. And thank you again. It's been wonderful having you. And Layla, can we bring Layla back so that she can also say goodbye to Dr. Gilbert before we go? Oh, no, absolutely. You want to say something?
No, I want to thank you, Maha, for a just fantastic conversation and for all the work you've done to prepare. Always, women are better prepared than men, and you have shown that with your diligent leadership here. I want to thank you, Maha. I want to thank Layla, obviously, and Dalel, the great organizer behind the scene. And I put on this t-shirt.
I was going to ask you to show us your t-shirt.
And I'm very proud of this. And this is, by the way, the Norwegian and the Palestinian flag. It's the Norwegian National Day today. But Kuluna Gaza. And
for someone who doesn't read Arabic, is we are all Gaza. Yes,
we're all Gaza. And let me address all of you who have listened to this webinar. Thank you for being there, and open your hearts, open your purse, give generously. This is our Ramadan gift to the brave people of Gaza. And the Kinder projects really need every nickel, every dollar. So please give generously to the food baskets for the Ramadan gift to the people of Gaza. Shukran jazilan.
Shukran. And before you go, I'm just going to say I'm very jealous of your cool t-shirts, because last time we spoke, you had another cool t-shirt. So next time you're in Al-Quds, promise me I'm going to get at least just one t-shirt gift, please.
Promise.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gilbert. Go enjoy the beautiful view outside your window.
Well, I just want to thank you, Dr. Matz, as well. It's always a pleasure to see you. This is really a treat. Would be great to see you in person again, but we are so grateful for you speaking and inspiring us. Solidarity medicine is a phrase I will now adopt and use exclusively. But I feel like probably many of the viewers, we need to watch this video again and listen to your words of inspiration and wisdom, to remind us of the humanity of the people of Gaza and their resilience, but also just their capability and capacity to manage in a very difficult situation. We continue to live under siege. The world is very distracted right now with their own problems of what this COVID pandemic that is going on. It's one more reason to ignore what's happening in Gaza and in Palestine. But the suffering is ongoing. We are grateful that they didn't have an outbreak, as you said. But if they did, it would have been disastrous because they don't have what they need, and it continues to be withheld. We continue to do our work to help support the people of Gaza. $130 is all it takes to provide food for Ramadan. If we exceed our goals, we will help more people now through the rest of Ramadan as well as beyond. In the fall, we have our program for feeding children who are going back to school, hot breakfast for them, for other ways that we support the people of Gaza. It is ongoing, it is our commitment, it is unwavering. And as we close this evening, I do want to thank you, Maha, for being such an amazing hostess for these conversations that we've been having. For the team behind the scenes, as you said, Dr. Mads, Dalal, Christine, and Will, who have put this together at fairly last minute when we realized we couldn't have our event, and we decided we still needed to have something, and this was even so much more. So I just want to thank them for their efforts, and of course, our partners on the ground in Gaza who work hard every single day to help their own people to live a better life. So I just want to thank, on behalf of the Board of Directors of Kinder USA, all of you. I want to thank you, Maha, you, Dr. Vance, and all of those of you watching who are participating. Share this video with your friends and spread the word, and have a wonderful, peaceful end of Ramadan as we enter the last few days of fasting.
Thank you, Layla. It was so wonderful to have you both today. I mean, every conversation we've had has been great, but I have to say this has been just extra special to have you both with us today. And as Layla was saying, if you missed a part of this conversation, if you want to watch it again, if you want to tell your friends about it, it will be on our Facebook page. It will also be on our YouTube page. Please share it. Please let people know. People need to know, as Dr. Gilbert was saying, people need to see, they need to know what's going on. So please share it as much as possible. And please, whatever you can give will make a big difference. As Layla was saying, everybody is really distracted now, and it's so easy to get kind of caught up with everything we've got in our own worlds. Oh, we're in quarantine, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. But there are people, and we know in Gaza that, you know, things are so much worse for them than it could ever be for us. As Dr. Pape was saying, it's basically what we're experiencing right now is what they've been experiencing for 14 years. So let's not forget about them. Every dollar counts. Do what you can. Go to kinderusa.org. Hit the donate button. And lastly, just $130 will feed a whole family for the month. And whatever extra will go to amazing programs that happen all year round. So please do what you can, help us. And we would also very, very much like everyone's feedback. If you enjoyed our webinars, we would like to continue them. There is a survey at the end of the Zoom meeting. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear what guests you'd like us to bring, what subjects, because if we can, we'd love to be able to do these throughout the year, at least until we can all get together again, for an event all together and break fast together and hear an amazing speaker. But in the meantime, we'd love to be able to do this so that we don't forget the children of Palestine, and we're able to revive some hope for them in this difficult time. Thank you again, and goodbye.
Thank you.